Hey guys, it is Abdul Online here at 93 WIBC, also the editor and publisher of IndyPolitics.org, weekend talk show host here at 93 WIBC, and newly sworn in Indiana attorney. Yay! That's why we didn't actually have to do this, get a chance to do this last week, because I had to be over at the Supreme Court getting sworn in. Abdul, aren't you a lawyer? Yeah, already am, but my license was next door in Illinois, and so as of Friday, I can be legally annoying in 2 states. Yay, score one for the good guys. If we can get stuff to stop falling down over there. Lots of things to sort of recap this week. And of course, we'll take your questions as well. By the way, Chris Presley, thank you for watching and joining us. We do appreciate it. Big news, obviously, is the Indianapolis City County Council and all the really bad episode of House of Cards has just been playing out this week. We have the council president, fire some employees, and then in addition to firing those employees, you had Stephen Clay accuse people of sort of impropriety, saying that pay increases had not been properly filed, and you saw this week he had like the big stack of shredded documents on the desk saying that these were payroll records and somebody needs to be investigated because someone snuck in sort of a Watergate-esque, like a thief of the night, and shred all this stuff. Which, by the way, we all found out in just a couple of phone calls, none of that was true. Proper notification had been given for the pay raises because all somebody had to do was, guess what? Call the friggin' Human Resources Office. And so that's what a number of us did and found out, yep, everything's just fine. So there went that out the window. And the shredded documents trying to hide thievery and deception, well, half those documents were from 2010, 2011 when Republicans controlled the city council, and 2012 when the Democrats took over, but guess what? The pay raise stuff didn't happen until 2016. But what do you expect from a guy who's been accused of inappropriate conduct with a minor, and it was substantiated in a DCS report? They're in a church that has a $14,000 default judgment attached to it, and is called basically police department racist. Yeah, go figure. And so now you got the city facing a lawsuit and potentially thousands of dollars because of the legal argument, which I thought was very sound, which I've maintained from day one, that the council president did not have the legal authority to go ahead and do that. I maintained that to my dying day. But here's a bigger question. What exactly does all this mean? Well, I wrote on my monthly column for the Indianapolis Recorder that this is no way to run a government. It really isn't. I mean, think about this. If you're the folks at Amazon, and part of what you're trying to do is figure, okay, where am I going to locate? And what's a good place? Part of what I need is, yes, I need a trained workforce. And yes, I need amenities and a good tax climate. But I also need governmental stability. That's what's most important. I need to know that the people who are running the show, that the people going to be in charge, have their acts together. And if I was, Bezos, or the folks running Amazon, and I looked at Indianapolis and the city council right now, I'd be like, old spider sense is kind of tingling on this one. I'm not quite sure if this is what I want to do. Oh, by the way, wait a second, Jeff. There's Fisher's right up the street. But yeah, they got a mayor that's got his act together and a council that isn't crazy and lots of space and still close enough to Indianapolis to enjoy all the benefits, but not have to deal with any of the crazy. So wow, imagine that as a possibility. So February 19th cannot get here soon enough. Is when the council is going to get its act together and hopefully get all this figured out. And the rumor on the street right now is it looks like Bob Osley is probably going to end up getting the nod from his fellow Democrats, but it's still maintained to be seen. Still trying to figure out what Republicans are going to do to kind of dig themselves out a little bit of a hole. And like I said, I understand the strategy. I mean, the Democrats were in total disarray and dysfunction, and they tried to take advantage of it. I'm just not quite sure if Stephen Clay was a person to do that. At the state level, my friends, which is of course always interesting, we're sort of at the halfway point. We saw things go through in both chambers, such as CBD oil, which is expanded for Hoosiers. Basically, as long as it's got less than 0.03% THC and it's labeled on the shelf, you'll be able to pretty much get it once it goes through with some of the legislation pending. Also, Sunday sales, but there were a couple of things that did not make it through. For example, cold beer, which, by the way, a friend of mine sent me. I'm not making this up. He sent me a column, I have to share it on WIBC.com, where you can actually buy cold beer in a grocery store in North Korea, but you can't get cold beer in a grocery store or a liquor store or in a grocery store, convenience store here in Indiana. Now, like I said, I got to check it out just to make sure it's true, but it was an interesting link it really was. And what really made me laugh and chuckle is that usually North Koreans are more concerned about cold fusion than they are cold beer. I'm just saying. Oh, and by the way, one other interesting thing that you do need to keep an eye on. This is really important. This is kind of a broccoli and Brussels sprouts issue. It's not as sexy as Sunday alcohol sales or cold beer or legalized marijuana. Is what we're doing with workforce development. Folks are finding out this is going to take a lot longer and a lot dicier to figure out than they originally thought. So efforts to kind of skill up Indiana's workforce are going on, but the question is going to be, can they, just so many moving parts. This thing is so massive. See, once again, people are falling down all over the place. You got to love it here. So massive that it's going to take a while to get all that figured out and squared away. And oh, by the way, if you got a question or a thought, feel free to go ahead and post it right here on our Facebook Live here at WIBC. And by the way, Chris Mitchell, thank you very much on the kind words about me finally getting off my butt and getting my Indiana law license. A couple people have asked me, Abdul, what are you going to end up doing? Well, I'm already affiliated with a firm called Lewis & Wilkins. We have an office right here downtown, actually not too far from the radio station. So I'll be working with them, doing some mediation, looks like doing some expungement, and a couple other things. But don't worry, I can still do all my political stuff. We have it all worked out. The political stuff, the broadcasting stuff does not go away. It's just when that kind of slows down a little bit, we're taking care of the legal things. So I will still have 8 million different jobs, and the reason why a black man can't find a job in Indianapolis will still be because I have all of them, and I just end up taking a couple of more. And finally, over at the federal level, we had a budget deal. The government was shut down like overnight for like 3 hours, and nobody noticed it, while they figured out another temporary spending plan. I have some problems with this, to be honest with you, I really do, because I'm all for funding your military and your domestic programs, but you cannot keep doing it at the risk of continuing to run up your federal deficit. And correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that if there was one thing that Republicans agreed on, whether fiscal conservatives or social conservatives, was this whole thing about running up the debt and running up the deficit. And that's kind of something they didn't want to do. And to me, it seems a little, hypocritical or at least politically expedient. That what people are doing is basically, putting together programs that are running up our deficit and debt. This is why I was not a fan of the Republican tax cut plan without the necessary spending cuts to go along with it. Because you know what? You basically cut $1.6 trillion out of your federal budget, and you don't plug that hole. I got some issues with that. And then you run up another $300 billion, worth of debt for the military and domestic programs. And are you surprised or shocked, that your stock market drops 2,000 points in about a week or so? Nobody really should be, because this cannot be long-term financially healthy for the country. Tax cuts do not bother me as long as we do the spending cuts accordingly. And this whole thing, we'll just have natural growth and that'll get, no you won't, you'll just run up the debt. I've seen this play before back in high school. It was called the 1980s when Ronald Reagan, Dan Rostenkowski, and Oregon Senator Bob Packwood all got together and wrote tax reform. They cut taxes but did not cut the spending to go along with it. And don't say, well, it was the Democrats that wouldn't let Reagan do it. No, because Republicans still controlled the Senate at the time. Thank you very much. It's called the curse of being a student of history. Also, one other last thing, this whole DACA issue. I'm a firm believer that issues should be decided on their own merits, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a DACA supporter. I don't see what the big deal is. Kids didn't do anything. They're here. They meet a certain criteria. Let them stay and let them become citizens. And I think it's interesting because a lot of Republicans will write off the DACA population and say, well, they're all just Democrats. Well, if you don't reach out to people and talk to people and engage them, you might find that you actually have more in common with them than you think. And so instead of just automatically writing off voting blocks of people, which Republicans have a bad habit of doing, you really shouldn't do that. Just as Democrats have a bad habit of taking big, giant voting blocks of people for granted. I mean, you never take anybody's vote for granted. You always reach out to people. You always talk to them because you know what? You never know what you might find. So that, my friends, is what has been going on at your state, local, and federal levels this week on this edition of Abdul Online. Be sure to catch us tomorrow on the program at 1 o'clock. We'll do a legislative recap. Our good friends, Republican Joy Fox, Libertarian Brad Kloppenstein, Democrat Mike Leppert will be here for the first hour of tomorrow's show. So we're going through what the legislature did. In the second hour, we talk about sex and gambling. Not necessarily in that order. Of course, depending on who you have sex with, you might be taking a gamble. My good friend Jeff Lilly from RCR Technology. We'll talk about the new Potawatomi casino tribe up in northern Indiana. What's this going to mean for us down here? And also another gentleman by the name of Michael Ocello. He is actually with the strip club owners. They have a lobby, and they're actually doing some interesting things when it comes to fighting human trafficking. I know it sounds weird, Strip club owners, human trafficking, aren't they responsible? No, not really. It's a little bit more complicated than that. And so hopefully you'll be listening tomorrow between 1 and 3. And of course, whatever pops up during the week, we will have for you at WIBC.com and IndyPolitics.org. Thank you guys for hanging out and listening. You've been watching Abdul online here on 93 WIBC's webpage, and we will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.